Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to MCIS's AGM for the fiscal year 2020-2021. My name is Dusan Matic.
And I'm Deanna Nemeth, and we'll be your co-host for tonight's event. Before we get started with the official AGM, we have a few housekeeping items that we'd like to review with you. Just so everybody knows, we're on Zoom webinar. So unless you're a panelist, which means you'll be speaking at some point, you will be on mute and your camera, you won't be able to see other people. We will be recording the meeting. And if your mic is not on mute, we would ask you to please be mindful of background noises and other conversations. If you have questions for the keynote, please use the chat box. And you can click view in the top right-hand corner and click speaker to see the speakers as they speak.
On behalf of MCIS and our board of directors, we are so happy that you could all join us, our language professionals, friends, funders, and service providers. We are among friends and colleagues, all of whom share MCIS's vision of connecting people globally through languages. We thank you all for being here today, especially considering that we are hosting this all virtually once again. Now, before we begin the official program, we would like to recognize the land upon which we find ourselves tonight.
We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
And now I will do a quick overview of this evening's agenda. So from 6 until 6:30, we will have opening remarks and land acknowledgement. 6:30 to 7, business AGM. 7 to 7:30, keynote presentation. 7:30 to 8, award ceremony, and 8 to 8:30 p.m. prize draw.
Now we're a little bit early, but we'll commence the business AGM with an introduction from the chair of our board of directors, Shasha Nand, and MCIS's executive director, Lata Sukumar.
All right, hello everybody. On behalf of the board of directors and staff of MCIS, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to the business portion of our annual general meeting, which will be followed by an evening of celebration, awards, and prizes. I want to thank the funders, service partners, and language professionals for taking the time to come. For 31 years, MCIS Language Solutions has been pursuing its vision to create a world where people can communicate across language barriers. Over the last 14 years, it has evolved into a model social enterprise, providing a range of language services, including interpretation and translation in over 300 languages. We've remained unequivocally committed to our core objectives, which are access to services, support for cultural diversity, and protection of human rights. Our current mission is to improve access to critical information and services through professional language solutions. Our values are respect, quality, collaboration, accountability, and learning. Since 2012, we've also been recognizing individuals and organizations that significantly contributed to advancing our core objectives and the overall growth of the language industry by either setting a standard of professional conduct and service delivery or by innovating in the field of nonprofit management. And this year as well, we will recognize individuals and organizations in 6 categories. And now to the business portion. I would like to formally welcome you all to the business portion of MCIS's annual general meeting. I trust that you've had a chance to review the agenda and minutes of the 2020 AGM, as well as the audited financial statements year ended March 31st, 2021, which was sent out with the invitation. So let me introduce you to MCIS's current board members. From the executive team, we have Vice Chair Monica Franklin, Treasurer Renata Panwasi, Secretary Pawel Kosicki, Directors Ken Zito, Shimona Petroff, Monica Donahue, Jasmine Atfield, Camille Jovanovic, Shyam Sridhar, Ambuja Rajaratnam. We have 4 board nominees for this year, and they are Saima Anwar, Jing Guo, Denise Wallace, and Kenny Leung. And our current committee members are Ben Choi, Kenny Leung, Maureen Wei, Sudha Datta, Herbert Law, Saima Anwar, Denise Wallace, Jing Guo, Greta Deda, and Teresa Sinisi. All right, I would like to now formally call the business meeting to order. So, can we have a mover to approve the agenda as well as a seconder? And if you can, please state your names clearly for the recording.
Pavel Kosicki moves.
Thank you, Pavel.
Camille Jovanovic seconds.
Thanks, Camille. All right, so moving on to the second item of the agenda, the minutes from 2020's AGM. So I'd like to call upon our secretary, Pavel Kosicki, to seek approval of the minutes.
Thanks, Josh. So for you who haven't had a chance to, please take a moment to review the minutes of last year's meeting. And if there are no questions, I'll seek approval of these minutes. Can I get a mover to make the following motion? Be it resolved that the minutes of the previous meeting of members held October 29th, 2020 be approved. Can I get a mover?
Can move Monica Franklin.
Thank you, Monica. Can I have a seconder?
Second, Monica Donahue.
Thank you, Monica. If anyone's opposed to the meeting minutes as written, then please voice your opposition in the chat since many people are muted. I'll take a moment to see if anyone does. Seeing no objections, the motion carries. I will now invite our chair and MCIS Executive Director back to present the joint ED and Chairperson's report. Shash and Lata, over to you.
All right, thanks, Pavel. So in a departure from our normal practice, Lata and I will present a joint ED and Chairperson's report, which is also in the annual report. So on March 12th, 2020, when the murmurs reached a crescendo within the World Health Organization, announcing that the globe was under siege with the COVID-19 pandemic, we all felt the chills going down our collective spines. This was unprecedented. No one knew what to expect and therefore how to prepare for it. So the fact that MCIS not only weathered it, but came out doing so spectacularly well is really a testament to nimble decision making, some visionary thinking, and preparedness.
Good evening, everyone. My voice is not very cooperative today, so if I falter or I'm not able to carry on, then I'm going to pass it on to Veronica to do my portion of the report. I want to try though. It's very nice to see all of you, at least virtually, and I'm hoping we can meet soon in the next year. You know that this pandemic was not very kind to me. I lost my husband to COVID, but I want to assure you that I'm well, and that's thanks to the best wishes, love, and support of all of you. So now to carry on with the report. I also want you all to stay safe and strong. MCIS provides an essential service. We are the voice of some of our most vulnerable. We had to immediately go remote after COVID struck and to continue offering our services. Thankfully, as though in preparation for this, we had just the previous year moved our call center and interpretation and translation management systems to the cloud. But now we needed laptops, Zoom licenses, more online teleconference rooms, better internet access, and secure VPN connections for all. We also had to train people on working remote and ensure proper coordination between our teams. We did all this and put together a communications task force, updated our website and a COVID page. We also had FAQs, weekly vlogs, regular newsletters, all of this to minimize calls from customers and vendors. Additionally, we dedicated staff resources to receive vendor and customer calls since bringing all our services remote via telephone and video required much more coordination. As a not-for-profit social enterprise, MCIS relies on its earned income to keep its operations going. And not unlike every other enterprise in Ontario, we were completely caught off guard by the drastic drop in our service volumes during the initial months. Also, keeping in mind the safety of our interpreters, we had decided to cancel in-person interpretation services until June 30th. Initially, there was little uptake for phone and video assignments because public sector agencies that requested our services had their own struggles adapting. During those initial months, the senior management team met with MCIS managers over Zoom every day to address and problem solve issues that arose, and we kept the board updated on our day-to-day operations.
And once we were firm in our business continuity plan, we chose not to dwell on doom and gloom scenarios, but focused on opportunities instead. There were two kinds. The first, where we could be of service to others, and second, projects that we could work on for which we now had more time. So for the first, we set up a free over-the-phone interpretation line to assist food banks and other such emergency services to provide access for limited English-speaking or LES callers. We also helped smaller agencies by providing them with free translation of their emergency communications. We created a clearinghouse of COVID-19 related resources in over 50 languages on our website. Most importantly, we observed how language barriers compounded the challenges LES had in accessing critical information and services, and sponsored an independent consultant to rally stakeholders across the broader public sector to organize Language Advocacy Day in February 2021. As for the second, we engaged volunteer consultants from Management Advisory Services to help us facilitate an organizational restructure and create a 3-year strategic plan. We clarified roles and responsibilities and identified areas of focus to help us work remotely, make better use of technology, and prepare for a future where artificial intelligence would become ubiquitous. We incorporated learnings acquired from operating remotely during these extraordinary times and completed both by November 2020. We also updated our vendor rosters with the latest and greatest information and upgraded our remote interpreter and translator training programs to make them more generic and bring them to a wider global audience.
Okay. At year end, we did very well financially since we made our services accessible by meeting customers where they were, staying responsive, and offering seamless service. Demand for our services did pick up after the initial slump. We also expanded to offer remote simultaneous interpreting for meetings and town halls and held our customers' hands as they waded into this world of technology-enabled remote services. Where we had seen no requests at all, we now began to average 30 video remote interpretation services per day. We also focused a lot of our efforts on vendor relations, offering frequent online educational sessions, and conducting several mental health workshops and webinars, which our staff team also took advantage of. We also went live with our new customer relationship management system for much better and more streamlined communications with our customers.
But our most ambitious work was facilitating with a broad coalition of passionate stakeholders interested in language access the Language Advocacy Day 2021 initiative, which took place as an online event on February 4th, 2021. Though our contribution was sponsorship and assistance with planning, our role served as a catalyst to inspire thought leaders from across the country to educate an interested public on the importance of this cause. It is MCIS's fervent hope that the coalition carries this initiative forward to make it an annual event. There were panelists from across the country and sectors and participants from around the globe. Stakeholders successfully advocated with MPPs across the political spectrum for an annual Language Advocacy Day. There is momentum post-event to bring a private members bill forward for this purpose. Where in the past we were unsure of our social purpose, we now have a renewed sense of the impact we can make. We realize more than ever that we are all connected, and the more we operate in service of others, the better we serve MCIS, our individual selves, and our community as a whole.
So change is never comfortable. And I know that from personal experience, and especially when it is forced upon you in such a dramatic fashion. There were no precedents to draw upon, and we had nothing nothing to which we could anchor ourselves. We were flying by the seat of our pants. There were so many moving parts. We had to ensure the trust of our language professionals who saw their income sources dry up. I know many of you are here and have joined us. We had to help customers deliver services in new ways through remote platforms. We also had to ensure the staff team received its requisite support, even as they took on more technically challenging tasks and collaborated through chat on the cloud-based call center. We did it all and then some. MCIS also conducted a needs assessment this past year so we could reimagine linguistic services to ensure the full and complete participation of all in Canadian society. COVID helped shine the light on various inequities that persist for immigrant and refugee populations. Marmita, the author of the report, establishing best practices for limited English speakers, a needs assessment funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, expressed her findings as follows, and I'm sure it'll resonate with all of you. We know that limited access to language services for limited English speakers presents multiple barriers and can often decrease participation in programs, cause social isolation, and various delays in personal development in most settings. Language interpretation and translation service provide an effective way to address language barriers and can help limited English speakers mitigate the negative effects of misinterpretation by wholly understanding and appreciating their circumstances. We also know that the current system is not prioritizing language services and does not allow limited English speakers the autonomy to access services on their own and on demand.
That MCIS was able to do all that we did is really thanks to a diverse group of talented and passionate individuals. First and foremost, a heartfelt thanks to our interpreters, who were warriors in the front lines, risking their health and safety to benefit people who needed their services. We are equally grateful to our translators who displayed the highest levels of professionalism in turning around their work with insanely unrealistic timelines. A big thank you to all of our technology partners who worked collaboratively to accommodate our requests despite all other pressures they were facing, and a special mention to Management Advisory Services for providing us access to their expert volunteer consultants and coaches. Each and every one of MCIS's staff team has been nothing short of stupendous, and the IT team deserves special commendation for bringing all our services remote within record time and continuing to patiently provide technical support. MCIS's board of directors provided visionary and exemplary leadership, coming prepared to every meeting and asking tough questions to ensure that MCIS stayed true to its mission and did everything to mitigate all risks and remain sustainable.
So we would like to thank our funders from, it's now called the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development, used to be Children, Community and Social Services, the Ministry of the Attorney General, the City of Toronto, and the Ontario Trillium Foundation for generous grants and support for our services, which support the most vulnerable among us, including survivors of violence and the homeless. We also thank all our customers for adapting to make their services linguistically and culturally accessible through these difficult times by engaging our qualified language professionals.
All right, and a few board members are stepping down this year. We thank Hilda Wu, Shimona Petrov, Renata Panwasi, and Monica Franklin for their diligence and stewardship throughout their tenure, and especially during this difficult year. We also thank staff members who left due to personal circumstances or to pursue other opportunities. In the post-COVID world, we will need to reinvent our delivery of services every day. Our challenges will be to remain intentional about engaging local resources, to adapt to new technology, and provide timely and responsive services to our most vulnerable, wherever we find them. We know that MCIS will continue to lead the way in providing linguistically accessible services for all. All right, I would like to now introduce the auditor. Our auditor, Barbara DeFonseca, will present her report for the year ended March 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Shash. And thank you everyone for having us here tonight. As Shash mentioned, I'm Barbara DeFonseca of EDC Chartered Professional Accountants. We are the auditors of the organization. Prabjot Sandhu is here somewhere. There's lots of us, so he's in one of these boxes, who was the lead senior on the engagement. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly for those of you that perhaps didn't get a chance to look at the actual audited financial statements. I'll quickly just scroll through so you can see them. I have 2 pages side by side. There's quite a few pages because, as you know, MCIS is a complex, large organization. So we've got quite a few pages and statements that we had to audit. So we'll see here that we have our auditor's report, which I'll go through last. And here we go. What we have is the statement of financial position for any of you out there that are not accountants or haven't taken an accounting course for quite some time. This is essentially lists all of the organization's assets and liabilities. Okay, so we had to audit, of course, all of these figures. And the next page over on the side is the statement of operations, showing the major sources of revenue. As Latha mentioned, the fee for service, which you can see increased again this year. Again, even though COVID was in place, the organization did quite well, even increased those revenues. Grant funding, of course, is a major source of revenue. And of course, there was some CEWS income and other income that was received. The major expenses are listed here. And of course, we have a little bit of an excess at the end of the year, which has increased quite a fair bit from the prior year. So kudos to the organization for doing a great job, again, during these tough times. We have supporting schedules. So even though we have that statement of financial position that you saw and the statement of operations, there's other critical schedules that are part of these audited statements that you will see that tie exactly into the statement of operations. So here's a summary of all the funded grants by the major programs, and again, the spending that was associated with each program. Again, we have to audit all of these figures. And the organization being quite large, there are thousands of transactions that occur. It's not possible to audit every single figure. So as auditors, we will interview management. We'll interview the management team, different parts of the organization. We will review internal controls over the major processes of the organization, such as cash payments or the recognition of cash receipts into the organization statements. And you will see towards the end of the audited statements, there's many notes. These notes are just as important as the actual figures, the actual cash balance. We have to audit these to make sure that they are fairly stating, the truth to you users of the financial statements. So all in all, you can see there's 16 pages in total. So we audit the words and we audit the numbers. Both are as important as the other. And here I am going back to the audited the actual audit report. So it's a 2-page audit report. Over the years, many years ago, this used to be 1 page. And as time has passed, and there's been fraud in many different organizations in the world, we are required to perform greater procedures. And as a result of that, our audit report, which you can see here, has gotten longer and is now 2 pages. The key thing to see in this report is this paragraph right here. After all of our sampling of invoices, documents that we requested of the finance team of Alex and Olga and everyone else, we had to sample them. We had to ask questions. We had to corroborate responses and information that we received. We had to do also what's called some analytical review, some inquiry discussions and analysis. Like Latha had mentioned, during COVID, IT expenses increased, the Zoom costs increase. These are things that we would expect. We will look at the numbers and compare to see, did they really increase? Okay, yes, that makes sense. But now let's dig further and look for some actual invoices to support those numbers. And we'll sample them and test them and make sure also that they are categorized into the correct department. So that we did do. Management was very cooperative throughout the process. From all the testing that we did not have any adjusting journal entries. And what that means is that the financial statements that were provided to us, they fairly represented the actual operations and assets and liabilities of the organization. So that's a very positive thing. It's a very strong representation of the quality of the figures. As I mentioned, the management team were very cooperative. We have what's called a management representation letter that has to be signed at the end, and everything went very, very well. So as you can see here, after all the work we did, in my opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the entity as of March 31st, 2021, as well as all of the results of the operations for that year ended. You will see here, there's a summary of the responsibility of management and those that are in charge of these financial statements. As I mentioned, the organization puts these statements together and provides us with these figures. They are responsible for it, and then we audit it. So again, very, very positive, strong results. And then here you can see towards the bottom of the first page and the remaining of the second page is the auditor's responsibility. It's our responsibility to obtain reasonable assurance that the whole financial statements are free from material misstatement, which is why we do all that work. And as you can see, obtain the understanding of internal control, evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies, which is essentially how things are being recorded, conclude on the appropriateness of them, and evaluate the overall presentation, which the most important thing is that what you're seeing is really essentially the truth, what's happened within the organization. It's a fair presentation. So again, it was a great audit. We did not have to do any correcting journal entries, and BDCA Chartered Professional Accountants signed off on the audit report that it's definitely fair presentation of the organization results for the year. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. I feel like we just audited the auditors. This is great. All right, could I ask someone to bring the following motion? Be it resolved that the financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2021, including the balance sheet and related documents, and the auditor's report for the year ended March 31st, 2021, be approved and adopted. Can I have a mover?
Pavel moves.
Monica Donahue.
Thanks, Pavel. Thanks, Monica. All right, is anybody opposed? All right, I'm hearing no objections, so the motion carries. And I would also, in continuation, ask for the following motion for the appointment of the auditor. Be it resolved that BDCA Chartered Professional Accountants be appointed auditors of the corporation to hold office until the next annual meeting of members or until their successors are duly appointed and a remuneration to be fixed by the board. Can I have a mover?
Camille moves.
Thanks, Camille. And can I have a seconder?
Pavel seconds.
Thanks, Pavel. Is anybody opposed? Okay, we are hearing no objections or don't see anything in the chat, so the motion carries. Thank you. I will now call upon Pavel Kosicki, MCIS's Secretary and the Chair of the Nominations and Governance Committee, for the next agenda item.
Thanks, Josh. Welcome, everyone, again. As the chair of the Nominations and Governance Committee, earlier this year, we started the process of identifying successors for board members who stepped down or are stepping down. We surveyed existing board members to identify skill gaps that would need to be filled, and then identified suitable candidates from MCIS committees. Postings were widely distributed to backfill the positions on committees, and at our last meeting, the board approved a slate of board members. The biographies of all board and committee members can be found in the annual report, which will be published on the MCIS website following this meeting. On behalf of the board, I would like to express our profound gratitude to our outgoing board members, Monica Franklin, Hilda Wu, Renata Punwasi, and Shimona Petrov. Your extraordinary commitment and contributions have helped us build a strong and stable organization over the years. We look forward to staying in touch with you so you can continue to help MCIS grow sustainably and to offer opportunities to our stakeholders. Thank you once again. We are also pleased to present 4 highly accomplished individuals to this year's slate who will be joining our returning board members. The new incoming board members are Denise Wallace, Jing Guo, Kenny Leung, and Saima Anwar. With that, I would like to present the full slate as approved by the board at the last meeting. Shash Anand, Pavel Kosicki, Ken Zito, Monica Donahue, Jasmine Atfield, Camille Jovanovic, Shyam Sridhar, Saima Anwar, Denise Wallace, Jing Guo, and Kenny Leung. With that, I would like a motion to approve the slate. Be it resolved that the proposed slate be ratified as the Board of Directors of MCIS until the next annual general meeting. Can I ask for a mover?
Monica Donahue.
Jasmine.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for seconding, Jasmine. If anyone is opposed, please let us know in the chat box below. We had a question, where is Ambuja? Ambuja is not in the list, but should be. So I'd like to amend the minutes to include Ambuja in that list. So once again, the presented slate is Shash Anand, Pavel Kosicki, Ambuja Rajanatnam, Ken Zito, Monica Donahue, Jasmine Atfield, Camille Jovanovic, Shyam Sridhar, Saima Anwar, Denise Wallace, Jing Guo, and Kenny Leung. Can I get a motion to approve the amended list of board members?
Jasmine.
Moves.
No, can I just suggest that the approvers and seconders not be among the board members themselves? So can it be Monica Franklin and Renata, for example, or people who are stepping down who are still members?
I can make the motion, Shimona.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Shimona.
Thank you, Shimona.
And I'll second happily.
Thank you, Monica.
Franklin.
Is anyone opposed to the updated slate of board of directors? Seeing and hearing no objections, the motion carries. Welcome to the incoming members of the MCIS Board of Directors. So this concludes the business portion of the meeting. Be it resolved that there being no further business to be brought before the meeting, the MCIS AGM of October 28th, 2021 be adjourned. Can I ask for a mover, please?
Anyone can move.
Shash Anand.
Thank you, Shash. Can I have a seconder?
Yeah.
If anyone's opposed, please let me know in the chat below. Seeing no opposition, the motion to adjourn the meeting carries. I would now like to invite our MCs back for the celebratory portion of the evening.
Thank you, Pavel, and thank you to our outgoing board and committee members for your dedication and commitment to MCIS. MCIS's growth and its continuous commitment to recruit highly qualified new immigrants and local language professionals has increased multilingual visibility that language services can provide to the globe while attracting and retaining competent professional staff, exemplary board and committee members, and excellent volunteers and interns.
So, slide, okay.
Jack, slide.
Jeff,
Please.
please. It's okay, so let's continue. Jack, okay, so I think that we can all agree that this year has been another challenging one. From concerns about the pandemic, politics, and truth or reconciliation.
I'm back. Sorry, guys, my Zoom completely froze.
It's okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let me repeat once again, I think that we can all agree that this year has been another challenging one. From concerns about the pandemic, politics, and truth and reconciliation, this year has been unlike any other. Every year in our annual general meeting, MCIS has a keynote speaker who presents experiences and knowledge on relevant topics as a means of encouraging discussion over social justice issues and inspiring thoughts among our attendees. Diana, your sound, your microphone.
Thank you. This year, MCIS is honored to have Nusat Abbas as our keynote speaker. Nusat brings years of local and transnational experience to her work in the arts, education, and social justice. Trained in comparative literature, women's studies, and creative writing, she has taught at schools, colleges, and universities in Canada, the US, and Europe, facilitated community art projects for refugee and immigrant women and girls, curated cultural events and festivals, and worked with feminist and independent bookstores and organizations. Her essays, reviews, and interviews have appeared in local and international journals, newspapers, and magazines, including the Globe and Mail, Horizons, This, Fuse, Wasafiri, World Literature Today, Oral History Review, Annual of Urdu Studies, and translated into Polish, Znak. She's the founder and publisher of Trace Press. Without further ado, please help us welcome Nusat Abbas.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I know you're all really tired. You've been working very hard for several hours now, but I want to thank you very much because one of the things that I've learned over the past year is the work that MCIS does, and I'm so impressed. I did attend Language Advocacy Day, by the way, in February and loved it, and it really resonated with the kind of work that we're trying to do at Trace as well. So I'm just very excited to meet all of you. And to connect with all of you, to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. I also feel that the work through this very difficult pandemic that you're doing as a nonprofit, I know the translators are struggling the way artists as well are struggling over this past 2 years. It's a difficult time, but we need each other. We need language. And we need to figure out how we can perhaps change things so we can build the kind of world we want, as opposed to the one that we have inherited, perhaps. So I want to thank all of you, the board, the volunteers, the staff, all the wonderful people at MCIS, because the work you're doing is so important and in a way visionary as well. I'm honored to be here. It's been a very complicated time for us as well. We've had to think through what we started in late 2019 And I'll tell you about this later, but I want to focus today in my talk, like the kind of former academic that I am, but be with me. And I really want you to come in at the end with questions, with thoughts. I want to hear from you, particularly those who work as translators and interpreters, because I'm trying to also think through the way literature has been formed and translation has been thought about. So we're kind of an open press in that way. We like to think through things. And I'm always very interested in hearing from people who actually work on the ground. So let's think through together about what words mean, what bodies do, the boundaries and borders that we cross, and about who and what gets to cross over and how. Let's think about departures and arrivals, and about who and what doesn't always come across despite all of our efforts. And I think we witness, there's an image that haunts me very much, and I'm not going to say too much about it right now, but perhaps come back to it at the end, which is something I'm sure you all are aware of. This image of a child who was, when people were trying to flee, when the Taliban arrived in Kabul, and this child was given over a fence to soldiers, the US Army. And that image of that child haunts me. And there have been many other children who've also had to be given over and given away. And this is what happens during conflict. I too actually come from an experience where I too had to move away as a child. So that particular child, that baby, is someone I want to think about and think with you today. What does that mean as we talk about language, as we talk about what is happening in the world, and who's going to come here eventually, hopefully, right? I want to think through also the work. What we focus on at Trace is literary translation, so I'm going to be quite focused on that. But it's that whole idea of interpreter, translator, the oral, the written. It's something that's open. I know in the professional field it's very fixed, but I think right now with some more interesting work being done by literary translators, orality, immediate performance of what is happening is such an art form as well. And I'm so impressed by it. So it's something I really want us to think about. So what does gesture mean? What does history mean? How do you translate context? Who listens? And I think the most important part of translation and the work you do is, and interpretation, is listening and reading. And when you're working within the confluence of two or more languages, how do you move these stories, these experiences, these words and ideas across borders? And there are borders. There are things that sometimes block what you're trying to do. Sometimes you may be treated with suspicion. You know, the whole idea of the translator as traditore, as the traitor, as somebody who might betray, but who also may be seen as somehow suspect, as somehow too aligned with the person whose words you're trying to translate. And especially when you're dealing with the state, with the police, with immigration officials. And I know many of you probably go through this, and it's something that I think is a political thought, right? So what are the barriers? What are the walls, the borders, both real and metaphoric? How does race, gender, class, colonialism, sexuality, ethnic differences, dialects, what gets seen as a national language, what is seen as a not so important language, and that is spoken? How do you all think about this? How do you experience it? When do you encounter it? And whatever we do with language also shapes reality back in turn, right? So how do we think about that? And what happens when you are a translator or interpreter who's very conscious, who's very aware of these challenges? How do you translate in a way that counteracts how violence can be embedded in the language? Sometimes language crosses, sometimes it gets lost, sometimes it's misheard or misunderstood. What might we ask? Also, can I ask if you can all hear me? I'm having a strange effect of sound. Diana, can you let me know?
Yes, we can hear you well,
Okay.
Musa.
Okay, good, thank you. So I wanted to think about how we work through what is also untranslatable in language. Right now we're working with a medium, Zoom, which makes us also work through technology as a form of translation. But in language, what is it that doesn't come across? And this is something that literary translators are constantly working with, right? But also in the daily act, you kind of wonder when you're working with someone, what's happening? Is what the person is saying actually coming across, or is it impossible to translate some words? The very famous one is, of course, the Portuguese word saudade. I'm sure I'm massacring the words, so all you Portuguese speakers can correct me. But there's so many words. I know in Urdu, I think of all kinds of words that don't fully translate. And I'm sure if you think about your own languages, what word would you think is just impossible to translate? And when we are reading or listening, I think of the attentiveness with which a translator does that work. It is such a powerful thing because you almost abnegate your own self in order to bring in the space for the other. And it's such an ethical thing to do that I think translation and interpretation are almost art forms that should be taught, because it teaches one to get away from the egotism of the self and to really bring in space for the other, which I think when we're working with injustice is kind of what we all need to learn. And that act of doing is a conscious act. The person is an agent, a contributor, and not just a blank recorder or transcriber. There's a whole debate happening right now in literary translation where a lot of literary translators are really upset that they don't get recognized in books. Basically their name is absent. It's only the author's name and the translated title, and they're disappeared. And so they're demanding to be at least acknowledged because they're very poorly paid for the most part. But then there's another counter argument, and this is something that we encountered with our first book, where it may be risky. The act of translation may be a very risky act where, if you remember with Salman Rushdie's book in 1989, The Satanic Verses, the Japanese translator was killed. Not Rushdie, he survived, but his translator was killed. I think it also happened in India, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people who are kind of working with texts that are somehow critical of the state have to think very carefully. And we're watching this happening right now in Afghanistan, where all the translator interpreters who are working for the United States and Canada, who were promised that they would be taken care of, are now suddenly abandoned. The same thing happened in Iraq. So this act of translation is also a risky act, and you take on something. And it's right now, it's something we need to think about, and also value this very, very important labor by people who are often themselves. Most of your translators have been migrants, have been refugees, have crossed borders, or if you have loved a language, learned another language, come with empathy to the other space, right? And we're living through this really extraordinary time, as all of you have mentioned, where a lot has happened last year. Some of it fabulous, incredible, just something I never thought I would see in my lifetime. So, I'm one of those people who missed the 1960s and was always very envious of people I knew who had lived through the decolonial moments and the struggles all over the world. So the past year was extraordinary to witness, and incredible young people, old people, everyone out there insisting on justice. So my talk is going to wander the way many of us have wandered the world, sometimes without clear direction or a sense of an ending. We're still living through this pandemic and through great loss, which I know some of you have experienced personally. I have lost people. I know many of you have. 5 million lives have been lost worldwide. The vaccine is not available in most parts of the world that are of the global south, which is the region I'm most attached to. There's political upheaval going on in Sudan, in Tigray, in Afghanistan, in Kashmir, in Lebanon, the list goes on. But we're also going through this beautiful struggle, and for Black life, for Indigenous sovereignty. And many of us arrived in this place here as very unwilling settler colonialists. We were caught up in the machinery of colonial violence that we all recognize, those of us who come from formerly colonized spaces. We understood it. We also understood its after effects, including the fact, for example, someone like myself who speaks English, right? That in itself is part of this history that I brought with me and then became a more suitable immigrant compared to someone who perhaps didn't. But what has that learning of English done to someone like myself who also had to lose languages in order to arrive at this privilege? And it's something that a lot of people are thinking through much more carefully now. So as we mourn this year, the suffering of Indigenous children, and I'm saying this year, but many of us have known about this for a very long time. what had happened in the residential schools and how it was covered up. So I remember watching a documentary on it in 2000, I think. So it's taken a long time for the country to recognize this, but many of us have known, and many Indigenous people have struggled very hard to make sure that this truth came out. And they were taken from their families, these children, they were forced out of their own ancestral languages, forced to assimilate to Anglo and French colonial culture, forced out of life itself. But as we mourn them, we should also honor their parents, their siblings, their cousins, all the relations who have refused to forget, who've insisted on justice. And I invite you to start exploring, if you haven't already, the incredible renaissance of Indigenous culture that is happening right now in Canada. So brilliant poets and artists and singers who are making really incredible art on Turtle Island. This is their ancestral home. You may know the musician Jeremy Dutcher. If you haven't, Google him, listen to YouTube. It's just absolutely brilliant. There's Tanya Dakak, who's a throat singer. There's Billy Ray Belcourt, who's a queer Indigenous poet who is young and absolutely brilliant. Leanne Samasaki Simpson, who's a feminist Indigenous theorist and poet and writer and musician, multi-talented. There's Alicia Elliott, another young writer, and there's so many more. It is just incredible to see this and very hope-inducing. And if you haven't yet, I invite you to see a film that I often used to teach, which is about the Oka crisis in 1990. And the filmmaker is Alanis Obomsawin, who's made lots and lots of films. So if you need to sort of reacquaint yourself with this history, her films are an incredible place to start. And her life is just a testament to the struggle. She's somebody who grew up Abenaki from that border area of the US and Canada. She grew up speaking and knowing her traditional songs, and then got displaced from them, but also reclaimed it. So it's very, it's a long struggle, and she's been there all along. So there are a lot of elders who have been moving and generating this movement. And the other really beautiful thing that, again, many of you are aware of is that with the technology, including the technology of Zoom and COVID and everything that we've been forced to do, there is a plus side. And a lot of people have been reclaiming and relearning Cree, Ojibwe, Mi'kmaq. I heard a CBC show yesterday that was talking about how Mi'kmaq is being taught through a podcast somewhere. And there are about 70 or so languages that are indigenous to Turtle Island. So you can just imagine, I was just thinking of this today, and I was like, imagine 5, 10, 15 years from now, how Canada might sound as immigrants and refugees and people like us enter, how different it would sound, because people will be speaking a language that has been spoken here, instead of us listening only to English and assuming that is the only language, or French, you know, the kind of stuff that we were taught through Trudeau's English-French thing. So it's, to me, that sound that I can imagine. Sometimes I live near the lake and I walk by the lake and I imagine those languages being spoken there. You could sort of hear it in the wind. It's there. The land carries it. To me, that is the sound of hope and of freedom. And language, as we all know, especially those of you who translate, also carries ideas, relationships to land, to histories, to people, to memory. And so along with this resurgence of language, there are also experiments going on in poetry, music, and theorizing that can teach us all, if we take the trouble to read and to listen and to watch, even look at art, to learn to see this landscape that we are living in differently from how we've been taught to see it, to understand these histories, these trees, the waters around us, and collectively we can start to undo the damage that colonial education does. Those of you who have children probably know how little your children are being taught in schools, colleges, and universities. It's a long way to go, despite this rhetoric of reconciliation and so-called, you know, racial justice against anti-Black racism and the history of slavery. So, I mean, I've taught for a long time. It's been a huge struggle. And so I ask of you, perhaps, if you are so inclined, but I do ask that of you, that you ask your schools where your kids go, the colleges they attend, the universities, to start changing things, to start changing the curriculum to reflect reality, basically, right? You don't want your children to be taught lies. which is kind of what colonial education is. It's this big whitewashing of the world. So how do we undo that collectively together as allies, right? Because we're all kind of occupying different spaces in this land. And if we ask this, if we work together to create a more just education system, then you hope that things will change, your children, grandchildren will get a better education, and that'll allow them to recognize where they are, where they live, and what needs to be done here on this land. And we have been, fortunate to enter, but without really the permission of those who actually are of this land. And that is kind of a shamefulness that I carry with me, that I don't know the language. Every place I go to, I try and learn a little bit of the language, yet I've lived here for years and I don't know the language that is spoken here. And that is a shame. That is a terrible shame. So reclaiming language is one way to work against the effects of colonialism. And another way, and this is something, again, you may be grappling with, is how do we work with this language, in this case, English, which is a Germanic Anglo-Saxon language that traveled across from Europe to part of that small island off the coast of Europe that we all kind of think of as so important, but it's just a tiny island. And English is the space of England, which is a small part of that island. And that language, that Anglo-Saxon Germanic language, arrived there in the 5th century, perhaps. That this language spread across the world is, of course, the effect of the British Empire, primarily in the 19th and 20th century, and then through the US Empire after that, and then all the currents of neoliberalism and globalization, which have been celebrated, and people are learning English, but in the process also losing their own language to the point that languages are going extinct. There's also a kind of spurious multiculturalism and multilingualism that we might want to be a bit wary of when it happens in that way. There's, some of you may know a Black poet, a Toronto-based poet called Narbise Phillip, and she wrote a very well-known poem. And if you look it up on YouTube, you can see her saying it out loud. And it's called Discourse on the Logic of Language. And she uses this phrase called English is a foreign anguish. And it's a rather painful poem to read because it tells you what was done to people who were forcibly enslaved and forced to give up the various languages that they spoke, the African languages that they spoke. So I invite you to acquaint yourselves with some of this writing and Toronto is incredible that way because it offers us a city that is so rich in work that has been done around this area. And this is happening if you look at Black writing across the world, whether it's in Portuguese, English, Spanish. One of the things these writers teach us, why I love literature so much, is it teaches you how you can take this language and rework it so that it works against its own history. It shows you a way to do freedom. And it shows you people who were forced to give up their languages, who also learned to be free and who have taught all of us to learn how to be free. And I think that's an enormous gift that we have received. Another writer, someone I love and admire very much, is the Kenyan author Googie wa Thiong'o, whose book, Decolonizing the Mind, I actually have a copy here. It was very precious to me, even though I don't follow everything he has recommended. And it was published in the 1980s, and he points out that even when the British and French and Portuguese left Africa, their ways of thinking remained embedded in the practices of the bourgeoisie. They had colonial schools, they were modeled after the ones of Europe. For example, there are all these sort of private schools and public schools and Makerere University, which was a brilliant university in Uganda. And yet Ngugi, who himself went to one of these colonial schools, he actually at a certain point, he was writing first in English, like a lot of African writers were, and then he said, no, I'm going to write in Kikuyu, my mother tongue. And he says, this is really, really necessary and important if we are to be free and to kind of decolonize ourselves. And he says, from what base do we look at the world? The language you speak allows you to look at the world differently. And so he's also, even though his novels have been translated by different people, the last novel he wrote, The Crow, he did it himself. And he also, when I met him, was talking about learning Kiswahili, so that he could read Kiswahili novels, because of course within East Africa, Kiswahili in Tanzania, where I come from, the language is absolutely alive and vibrant. It is one of the few places where that is the major language, partly because of the colonial policies carried out by Nyerere government. Over the years, I've taught and designed lots of courses that introduce students to literature from all over the world. I've taught them through novels and poems to map the effects of colonialism through different forms of state and patriarchal violence, and the displacement and migrations that continue to take place. A lot of this work has been done through books in translation and also books written in English, but doing this work has not been easy. Many departments I've worked with, especially those of community colleges, which, by the way, do not allow faculty so-called freedom of expression in Canada. In the US, they actually, I think, have it, but in Canada, no. University faculty do have that kind of protection. They've kind of resisted and sometimes blocked this kind of curricular change, and in really nasty ways. Suddenly, after last year's protests, they're wanting to diversify, they want to have reconciliation, have Indigenous studies departments, and so on and so forth. So suddenly there's this interest in doing it, but it's often done in a tokenistic manner. And on the ground, I'm hearing some really disturbing, like today I was talking to a friend in the US, where university professors are under attack, where administrators want to stop the whole thing of teaching about racism, where they're trying to get rid of professors who even have tenure. So this is something to be very aware of, and to see how academia itself is in a very problematic place. You kind of probably know what happened at U of T with the hiring of Valentina Azarova as well. So it's a tough time. There's a kind of backlash also happening. And this brings us to the business of books, which is what I do now. The BookNet survey of 2018, which is sort of this nonprofit that looks at the book business in Canada, shows that Canada's publishing sector is 82% white, 74% female, 72% heterosexual. And this has been borne out by repeated racist, sexist scandals that came to light in the past, like I would say 4 to 5 years. And I'm sure there's been plenty before that we don't know about. The book publishing industry is primarily male owned. So most of the presses are owned by white men, a lot of whom got funded from the 70s and 80s when funding was more easily available. There used to be a Black woman-owned press, Sister Vision, which was brilliant in the 80s, but that has shut down. There are a few feminist presses, there are a few presses owned by Indigenous peoples, but it's still a very, and these are the people who then decide, make decisions, right? It's indifferent to literature published by Global South authors. Overall in North America, only 3% of books are translations from other languages, and these are mainly European languages. Again, there's a rush. Suddenly people want to get books from Africa, they want to get books by Indigenous authors, but this doesn't really address, and they want to diversify. So they'll hire young interns who are of color and Black and Indigenous, but they won't really promote them to higher levels. So it's within this context, I decided to start a press in late 2019, right before COVID hit. And we were very optimistic. We were going to do bilingual books. We were going to do mainly translations of literature, of poetry and fiction. And I also wanted to do literary nonfiction in English by writers in Canada. And one of the things we wanted to do, and we still want to do, is very much to promote translators from working in heritage languages. So people who may not think of themselves as being able to do literary translation, but we want to invite them to learn. And we're actually going to be offering some workshops around that, starting with, I actually shouldn't announce it yet, but we'll soon find out. So yeah, so this is where we are. We hope to do children's books later on. And we pull back, we're reimagining the press, and we hope I'm currently working on an anthology of translators talking about translation, all women, all of color, racialized women, and Black women, and we're hoping to launch this next year. So this is kind of what we're doing. I would love to hear what you think. I'm happy to tell you more, and want to hear back from you, where you're at, where you think needs to be done, what you think needs to be done, and where we can go from here.
Thank you, Nushat, so much for such an engaging and impactful presentation. We are very, very lucky to have been able to connect with you and have you involved in our AGM, and look forward to engaging with you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, if you have any questions, please do post them in the chat box below, and we'll make sure that Nushat is able to respond to them for you. Of course, if you have questions at a later date, we're happy to send the questions to her and provide responses. Oh, okay. So one of the questions, I don't know if you can see it, Nushat, in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Salil.
Oh, yes, I can see that. Sure, I can respond to that. Everything is political. Every single thing we do is political. And as somebody who's a trained academic, I do my research very well. So it's not by the media. It's actually through about, I would say, 30 years of in-depth knowledge and reading and understanding of what is actually going on now, because what is happening right now is actually related to what has happened historically. So my training is in colonial history and decolonization. So it's a deep knowledge that I'm happy to share with you here. Okay. I see a question from Lata. Okay, there's some interesting questions coming up. Okay, in terms of the books that we are working on right now, we have a couple of books in process, but until I get the manuscript, I'm a bit nervous to speak about it, but I'll tell you the languages that we're working in, which is Tamil, Arabic, and we actually have somebody who works in Bahasa Indonesia. So we're open. We're primarily interested right now in focusing on Afro-Asia, but we're actually quite open. I do read a little bit of Spanish, so I do love Spanish. So there's a temptation I'm having to go there. And also that we'd be interested perhaps in books, even translated from French, or Portuguese or the colonial languages, so long as they grapple with the questions of the global South in some way, or migration. One of the challenges, and I should say this, that we face as publishers is that Canada Council, which is the main funder of the arts, does not fund anything but translations of Canadian authors. So before it used to be only English and French, now it can be any language, but so long as the author is located in Canada. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing in how we do this. Okay.
So there are a few fantastic questions. We have
Please
time for a few more. So question for Veronica. If any of our translators, interpreters would be interested in being more involved in literary translation, how would they go about it?
Try it. Just sit there with a book you love. Don't start with a book, that's hard. Take a poem or a short text. And this is, I was actually at a seminar yesterday with a brilliant award-winning translator. And that's exactly how she said she began. Somebody asked her, how did you start? And she said, well, I had a bachelor's degree in languages. And I just sat with a book I loved and I practiced and I tried and I listened to the sound and I paid a lot of attention and I trained myself and I taught myself. So yeah, some people can go. It does help if you're somebody who loves literature and reads literature. You have to have a sound for literature, both in the home language and in the language you're translating into. You have to have a sense of the music of language, but try it, just try it. And I think we're going to try and give workshops as well to encourage people in specific languages. We can't do everyone. You all know way more languages than I do, but please try it. And please, we'll try and create opportunities to get published, you know.
Fantastic. And we have time for a couple of more questions. You just mentioned languages you speak, and Aster asked, how many languages do you speak?
Badly, all of them, which is why I love you translators so much. I was somebody who was displaced and lost the language that I love a lot, which is Kiswahili. I understand it, but I can't speak it fluently. I grew up in Urdu, which is not my language. My mother tongue is Gujarati, but my mother actually studied in school. But by the time I came around, I'm a post-independence child. And the British did these weird language schools for ethnic minorities, which is kind of a form of segregation as well. And so I don't know how to read and write in it, but I know how to read and write in Urdu. So it's all very mixed up. And I learned Spanish a little bit because I lived in Spain and I lived in Turkey. So I like Turkish a little bit, but badly, terribly. But I love the music of it. And that's why I want you all to translate and people to come and translate with Trace, because I just love the sounds.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nushat. And we have time for one more question.
Do we want to do one more question?
Let's do one more question.
Let's do it.
How can we begin to heal? This is, I'm sure that we need time to respond, but how can we begin to heal from the wrong that was done by colonization in terms of language rights? Is there anything we should do to reclaim language that has been lost?
Wow. I don't fully know the answer. I'm watching what people are doing. For example, right now, one of the things we're trying to do with our workshops, our literary workshops, is also to invite second generation kids, for example, who have lost their mother tongues or who don't know how to read and write in it. We're inviting them back because a lot of them love poetry. And so by translating and working with a translator, they can at least hear the sounds of their mother tongues and get seduced back perhaps into learning those languages. So that's one thing we're trying to do. And we're right now, I'm applying for grants to make that happen for next year. And I think that what Indigenous people are doing right now show us how we can heal. And we can heal with love, with tenderness,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with art.
Thank you, Nushat. Diana? Your microphone?
Thank you, Nushat.
There's a comment from Lata. Maybe we can. Yes.
We can address the comment from Lata one more.
Oh, it didn't come out clearly. 82%. We are tiny. We are totally small. And we have, I think, a really good idea and a lot of passion. I'm getting tremendous interest from people. I mean, the challenges are huge because the way Canada Council, the way funding is set up, it does not encourage a press run by someone like myself, right? So although I've spoken with funders and they're all very interested, but the way the system is set up, it doesn't fully permit it. So we're trying to actually. Oh, I hear another language.
Alex,
1 second, guys. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're basically, we want to do translations primarily by women. We're encouraging women from the Global South to become translators, to be the authors. We want to nurture and support new voices. And we're trying to basically say, this is the way the system is. We can sit and try and fight and get into the system, or we can just create our own and starting. I mean, the literary world, I mean, when there's the sense of the world is huge, right? I mean, the languages in the world, the literatures, I mean, if only 3% of global literatures are translated, can you imagine how our mind will get blown? Like I, for example, read literature from the former Yugoslavia, which I love. I read Romania. I was talking with Veronica, the Romanian poet, who I think is a bit problematic, but that's how I learned about Romanian poetry. I read, again, everything in translation. And so the world is incredibly rich. And the stories, if we all start to hear each other's stories, our love and understanding of each other is going to change. That's something I can guarantee. If you learn to speak someone else's language, you will learn to also love them a little bit. I hope. I should say no, because the old colonialists actually were very good at languages. And it didn't always translate to love. But, you know, I use an Urdu dictionary, which is the famous one called Platts, which is done by an old colonial guy. The old Swahili dictionary was done by a British colonial guy who luckily my grandfather had met. So, you know, we're stuck with the residue of all these things too.
Thank you, Nushat.
Thank you, Nushat.
Thank you so much. I wish I could tell you thank you in all the languages of the world.
That would be fun.
This was fantastic. We are so lucky to have you with us tonight. And I'm and we at MCIS are so looking forward to engaging with you again in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Deshaun. Thank you, Diana.
Thank
and
you.
Letta.
We'll now take a 5-minute break before we get to the awards. You're not going to want to miss this. The awards this year are absolutely exceptional.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Since its inception in 1989, MCIS has evolved into a model social enterprise, providing over 50 language services and solutions in over 300 languages. We have grown into a successful organization committed to bottom line objectives, sound finances, the protection of human rights, and diversity. All of this has been the direct result of contributions from each one of you, including our staff, board members, volunteers, interns, and of course, our partners.
Tonight, we'll present awards in 6 different categories. Votes were cast for each of the categories by the MCIS team, service providers, and the peers with whom you work. The first award of the night goes to the Training Facilitator of the Year. The Training Facilitator of the Year is awarded for outstanding professional contribution in removing language barriers by guiding trainee interpreters and translators to meet their goals and achieve their objectives. The individual is dedicated to excellence in teaching, passion in passing on the knowledge and skills of language professionals, and respect in the classroom. The nominees are Hind Sak and Elizabeth Martinez. I'll turn it over to my co-host, Ishan, who's also the Training and Vendor Relations Manager, to present the award.
Thank you, Diana. And the winner is Hind Sak. Dear Hind, your amazing personality, professionalism, and extraordinary knowledge made you the best facilitator of the year. Thank you for being part of our team, and thank you for leading our students towards becoming outstanding language professionals. Your incredible dedication and hard work are an inspiration to all of us. Congratulations, Hind.
The next award we'll present is that of Translator of the Year, and to present it, I'd like to invite our Translation Manager, Nicole Anikini, to say a few words. The Translator of the Year award recognizes outstanding contributions in translation and measures responsiveness, reliability, and technical skills. The winner is selected based on the nature, diversity, and complexity of translation work completed in the past year and consistent reliability to MCIS assignments. Nominees for Translator of the Year are Catherine Koenig, Shamil Jazvir, and Enrique Serini.
Thank you, Diana. And the winner is Shamil Jazvir. I am pleased to present the Translator of the Year award to Shamil. Shamil's been working with us as a Punjabi and Hindi translator over the last few years. He's always responsive, flexible, and willing to help with any assignments the team throws his way, and his work is always meticulous. I would also like to recognize our runners-up, Catherine Koenig and Enrique Serini, both of whom are always a pleasure to work with as well. Shamil, Catherine, Enrique, on behalf of the entire translation department, we would like to thank you for everything you do.
Finally, we have the Interpreter of the Year award. The Interpreter of the Year award is presented to a professional interpreter who demonstrates excellence in services delivered, steadfast dedication to MCIS and the language industry, and professionalism in the field. The Interpreter of the Year is a person who MCIS can always depend on for assignments and receives constant positive feedback from our service providers. The nominees are Khalil Popal, Miriam Sirhan, and Harsha Baxi.
And the award goes to Khalil Popal. Dear Khalil, thank you for making such a valuable contribution to our vision to connect people through languages. We are all truly admire your incredible knowledge, professionalism, and dedication as an interpreter. Thank you so much for the incredible work you are doing, and we are looking forward to many, many more successful years with you. Congratulations, dear Khalil.
Congratulations to our Language Professionals of the Year. Your plaques will be sent out to you early next week. Now we'll move to the partner awards. Our first partner award for this evening is for Community Partner of the Year. The Community Partner of the Year award is presented to a partner organization that has collaborated with MCIS in its advocacy efforts to advance learning rights, improve access to critical information and services for vulnerable populations that experience language barriers. The award for Community Partner of the Year goes to Maximus Canada. Judy Abraham, our National Business Development Manager, will present this award.
Good evening, everyone. Our Community Partner of the Year, like Deanna said, is Maximus Canada. We started working with Maximus Canada in 2017, and what began with one department and a few minutes of interpretation has evolved into the strong partnership that it is today, supporting many different branches, departments, and organizations. Maximus Canada focuses exclusively on providing services to the government across health and human services and transform public policy into programs that change lives. They bring together government-sponsored program know-how and technological sophistication. They care about the people they serve and embody their mission, which is helping governments serve the people. We had the privilege to help Maximus Canada in their endeavor to serve government agencies with tools to provide services, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, untangling information about COVID and vaccination rollouts, and continue to do so. We were able to witness their commitment to quality and ensuring the provision of equal access to information and service. Thank you, Rajiv, for a fantastic working relationship, for helping us roll out our new processes seamlessly, especially during this stressful period of the pandemic, and for your overall support. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Judy, and congratulations. And now, our next award is for Professional Partner of the Year. The Professional Partner of the Year award is presented to a partner organization that has shared its knowledge, expertise, and/or technology, which has in turn enabled MCIS to provide language services with higher quality, efficiency, or cost effectiveness. This year, Professional Partner of the Year award goes to Toronto District School Board. Judy Abraham, our National Business Development Manager, will present this award.
Our Professional Partner of the Year is Toronto District School Board, and I'm honored to present this award on behalf of MCIS. We've been working with TDSB in many capacities for more than 10 years, and I was fortunate enough to be part of this partnership from the very beginning. We provided in-person training to their in-house interpreters in 2010, and we have now come full circle and are in the process of providing the training remotely. We have also provided interpretation and translation services over the years to help them ensure access to education to all, regardless of the language proficiency of the students and/or their parents. We admire their commitment to excellent and accessible education. And with 583 schools, I'm sure they have touched most Torontonians in one way or another. I know they have touched mine. Their mission, which is to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement and well-being, and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and values they need to become responsible, contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society, is close to our hearts, and we're grateful to have worked closely with them for the past 11 years, and we look forward to many more successful years of partnership. Thank you, Margaret, for your patience, sharing your wisdom, and support whenever needed. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Finally, we have the Strategic Partner of the Year Award. The Strategic Partner of the Year Award is presented to a partner organization that has collaborated with MCIS through mutually beneficial initiatives, which advances MCIS's capabilities in further reaching its beneficiaries through expansion and development of its language services. Once again, Judy will also present this award.
Strategic Partner of the Year Award goes to London Health Sciences Centre and St. Joseph Healthcare London. Our official working relationship started in December 2019, right before the pandemic struck, and that meant we all had to be very agile, adapt to unexpected changes, and work cohesively as a team if we were to ride the waves and make it to where we are right now. We made it. Our partnership with these amazing hospitals helped us learn how to deal with the pandemic, talk about flying by the seat of our pants in a more systematic way to avoid disruption of service while ensuring the health of our language professionals, especially the unsung heroes, our fearless interpreters, hospital staff, and the community at large. Just check out their website and how so much information is available in so many languages, and you'll know exactly what I mean. I would also like to highlight the innovative ways that they worked during the last 2 years, providing unparalleled patient care, and I am awed by their commitment to excellence in everything they do. A big thank you goes to all the hospital staff, and I would like to especially thank Ryan Bumstead, Jill Sangha, and Kelly Taylor for being available 24 hours and at a moment's notice sometimes to answer all our questions and making the new norms feel normal every time there was a new norm. I am honored to present this award on behalf of MCIS, and we're looking forward to many more years of working hand in hand to improve the health of our communities and keep everyone safe, one patient at a time. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Judy. On behalf of St. Joseph's Healthcare London and London Health Sciences Centre and our committee members, Jill Sangha and Ryan Bumstead, we thank you for this award. It has been a great collaboration between all three organizations. The pandemic has had such a profound effect on everyone, both personally and professionally, and has required organizations to pivot their business model overnight. MCIS has been extremely responsive to our ever-changing patient and resident needs throughout this pandemic and has contributed to our translation services and interpretation discussions where process improvements or expansion of change of services needed to occur. We would like to express our gratitude to all of the interpreters who were flexible and provided this essential service during these very challenging times. We thank MCIS for their collaborative approach to providing this essential service and supporting our organizational missions to provide the best quality care for the patients we serve while keeping everyone safe. Thank you so much, Judy and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and congratulations to all of our partners. Is everybody doing okay? Yeah? Okay, great. Before we get to our milestone award recognition awards, we'll invite MCIS's senior management team to say a few words about their teams. First up is Rachel Wu. Rachel's MCIS's Director of Human Resources, who is actually on parental leave right now. So for one evening only, welcome back, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see you here at the AGM. For those who I haven't met yet, I'm Rachel and I'm the Director of HR. I'm currently taking mat leave. I just had a little boy who's going to be 4-month-old tomorrow. I have to say that it's been absolutely amazing to be a mom, although I really miss having an 8-hour sleep. It just feels so great to spend time with the little one and discover something new about him every day. So I think the pandemic has made me more aware of things that I probably didn't appreciate before. You know, those things that you may have taken for granted and the things that you may have overlooked in the past. But the pandemic has taught me to appreciate them more than ever. You know, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, and those people you work with every day. Year 2020 has been challenging for all of us. So here at MCIS, we have accomplished so much as a team. We had the organizational restructuring last year, where we introduced a couple of new positions and work processes that allow us to keep looking for new ways to improve our overall efficiency. We truly value our employees and encourage the professional growth and career mobility within MCIS. Also, lots of work were being done last year to ensure the health and safety of our staff and language professionals during the pandemic. We worked on and implemented a new strategy to better support and engage with our language professionals. We also continue to enhance our partnership with other organizations and agencies and successfully deliver the interpreter and translator training to help address their training needs and meet their business goals. 2020 was definitely a year full of challenges and opportunities. None of this would have been possible without you. So I think tonight we should celebrate together and show our gratitude to each other. It's each and every one of you who have made MCIS successful and a great place to work. So thank you all for your contribution. Then I would like to take this opportunity to introduce my wonderful team members. So let's start with Katie. Katie has taken on so many additional responsibilities while I'm away, and she was recently promoted to become the HR manager. So thank you so much, Katie, and congratulations again. Sumaya is the HR assistant, and she joined the team in May this year. So hi Sumaya. And of course, Princess. Princess is the office assistant, and she's always making sure that we're all well taken care of. Then let's move on to the training and vendor relations department. So we have Dushan, who's our training and vendor relations manager. And I'm sure many of our interpreters and translators know him really well. Dushan is responsible for recruiting and engaging our language professionals. He's also responsible for delivering and managing MCIS training programs. Then we have Amal, our training coordinator, and Suyoshi, who's the training and vendor relations assistant. So they oversee MCIS training initiatives and provide academic and administrative support to the trainees. Also, Rashmi is our vendor relations coordinator, who's mainly responsible for managing and maintaining interpreters and translators profiles. Last but not the least, we have Iman, the recruitment coordinator, who just joined our team last month. So welcome again, Iman. So thank you so much once again for all your hard work and dedication. It's great to see everyone virtually. Please enjoy the night, and I hope to see all of you in person very soon.
Thank you, Rachel. So good to see you. Thank you so much. We miss you so much, and we cannot wait to see you again and meet our MCIS baby, Austin. Thank you so much, Rachel. So happy to see you again. Next is our Director of IT and Internal Operations, Williams Pedrogan.
Okay, thank you so much, Dushan. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes. Sorry, guys. One quick second. Could you please make me co-host again? I had to reconnect so I can spotlight people. Thank you.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Williams Pedrogan, Director of IT and Internal Operations at MCIS. So I have been with the company for 9 years, so I think most of you already know me. And I would like to say that IT and operational services are fundamental for any organization to operate effectively and efficiently these days. And that's precisely what my team and I try to do every single day. IT and internal operations at MCIS has 3 internal areas that include IT, or IT infrastructure, which is wonderfully handled and monitored by Paul Sporshik, our IT rock star, that makes sure that all the equipment and core IT components operate at peak efficiency while provides technical support. Very recently, back in July 2021, MCIS hired Amir Shahid as our IT operations assistant to help us to keep serving our internal users to the level of quality that we all deserve. From an IT implementation perspective, we have Ahmed Al-Ghotmi, which is our almighty and cutting-edge IT implementation specialist. He's basically in charge, along with our network of technology partners, to gather functional requirements with all stakeholders, oversee implementations and improvements related to our service delivery platforms, and provide level 2 support for users. Last but not least, we have our dynamic duo and gatekeepers of our service delivery platforms, Laura and Luisa, Laura Zoldner and Luisa Cano, who diligently provide administrative support, prepare reports, and offer level 1 support on how to use our systems. Next slide, please. COVID times have been particularly difficult for all of us. And for us, it meant and it still means a lot of work. In the IT front, we had to prepare everything in record time to allow our users to safely and efficiently work from home for an extended period of time, which posed and still poses a significant challenge in terms of technical support duties and security. We have been doing our best, and big kudos to Paul and his team, because without him, none of this would have ever been possible. In the IT business front, almost 1 year ago, we hired Ahmed Al-Ghotmi, which I have to say that it's been right on time. We did it right on time, right before the pandemic hit, because Ahmed had been working with internal users. He participated from the very beginning on the implementation of IIOPI, the platform that we currently use to deliver immediate interpretation services. And he actually keeps working with internal users, and there are wonderful things coming up in the future thanks to him. From an internal operations front, the internal operations department was not exempt of challenges as well. At the beginning of the pandemic, we found ourselves in a situation that demanded us to quickly make changes in most of our system setups. We also had to prepare for some time, even on a daily basis, we had to prepare reports for decision making to help service delivery and business development teams inform and to identify opportunities and adjust our internal capacities. Something that I remember from those days is that we even reached a time where we noticed from one day to the other that our OPI volume increased 400%, and we didn't know where that was coming from. So we had to react very quickly, and the fact that we were running daily reports was fundamental for us to quickly react and identify what needed to be done to keep our standard of services. In general, the only thing I can say to my team and to everyone is thank you for all the hard work that you have been doing, and I feel absolutely proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Williams. Now hear from our CFO, Alex Alenikoff.
Thank you, Deanna. I was asked to reflect upon the last year, and a lot of it has something to do with what Barbara was talking about our financial performance. My recollection of our last year was a very slow start in the first quarter, April, May, June. However, we were eligible to receive government subsidy at the same time, which helped us a lot to control and contain our expenses. So in the end, it all worked out very well. Overall, MCIS had an outstanding year from a financial perspective. Starting from the income statement, our revenue was $12 billion, which was 10% or $1.2 million higher than $10.8 million last year. So we increased our revenue by 10%. From a gross margin perspective, we finished the year at an astonishing 53% versus 43% last year. So this is an amazing 10-point improvement over just 12 months. Net income improvement was also very substantial. And one thing that should be noted is that we better controlled our SG&A expenses. We became more efficient versus last year. SG&A expenses as a percentage of revenue were down to 40% versus 41% last year, a 1% improvement. So in other words, our revenue went up by 10%, but our SG&A expenses increased by only 9% on a year-over-year basis. This includes salaries and benefits, system support, office administration, amortization, accounting, and professional, and many others. So as you can see, we were able to control our expenses and grew our revenue more. Bottom line, we are generating enough revenue to cover increased overhead. So based on the above, we had a very solid performance last year, and we are working hard to repeat this success in 2021, 2022. Now, just a couple of words about my team. We have a small but powerful finance team, including myself, Olga, our accounting manager, Anila, the finance coordinator, Bhaskar, finance assistant, Hidayat, finance and internal operations assistant, and Esther, finance and internal operations assistant. This is a wonderful team. I've been enjoying working with them for a long time now. It's a very stable and high-performing team. Thank you very much, team.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you. I'd like to call upon Lester Corbelly, our Director of Marketing and Business Development, to say a few words.
Hi there. Well, thank you very much. Glad to see everyone here tonight. I want to talk just briefly about my team, starting off with marketing and business development. Well, in marketing, we had a great year this year. Gregory Bourne came on board and assisted us in terms of revamping our marketing, brand. We worked closely together with some consultants that he coordinated as well. And we started this initiative where we wanted to revamp the website. We were hoping to do it throughout the year, but we had so much momentum. There was so much excitement, starting off with the SEOs, the AODAs, that we continued going full speed ahead. And the good news is we're almost there. And we're working now with an internal committee, making sure everyone is happy with their portion of the website. So Greg's done a fantastic job. It's great to have him on board. And when we talk about business development, we split the team in two. During that new, I guess, organization reshuffle starting in January, we came up with the new business development, which is looking out for new business. This includes a hunter rep or a hunter manager that goes out there and finds brand new business that is non-RFP related. And now with this new website, the SEOs that we have up and running, we're finding there's a lot of customers coming to our website, sending us emails, asking questions. So this is really keeping the young man by the name of John Frace really busy. And the beautiful part too is he's been given a funnel of different segments that we want to work closely with and help out during the pandemic, because we noticed that the ones who needed the most assistance, and we had to align ourselves with them, was the healthcare industry, as well as the educational industry, and not to mention third was the government. So a lot of great job there for the new business development team. And also he's been helping out with the white label. That's another initiative we started in terms of training, where we're selling our training online to other LSPs that resell and make it look like it's their business, or sometimes they want to use the MCIS brand name because they see the value. So it's a win-win scenario. Then when we look at the new business development, we have the other formal process of writing RFPs, and taking care of that division is Deanna Nemeth. So not only is she looking at RFPs, but she decided during the pandemic that we needed to increase our communication and go out there and talk to customers, talk to our service providers, talk to the interpreters out there. And she put together a program for communications. And we've been extremely successful through social media, through the website, and internally with the newsletter. She's done a fantastic job. And she brought on board with her two other players to assist her, Cheryl Liu, who's a coordinator, as well as Ashley, who's a specialist. They help out with putting newsletters together, coming up with content, putting videos together of all things. And it's a great job. These guys have really worked hard during the pandemic, and they did something that was crucial, putting that thread together, which was communication. There's one component missing, is we're looking for a new coordinator for RFPs. We just lost Sarah recently. She did a great job, but we've got some plans in place to hire someone shortly. Now, going to the foundation of our business, what we're known for, being a nonprofit social enterprise, we're not in it for the money. As you could tell, we're not making a lot of money. But the great thing we do is we create an impact. That's why we're all here today. We want to make a difference. Who better than to lead the team that directly communicates with our customers? No other than Judy. Judy is fantastic. She cares about her customers. She's really, really dedicated, working long hours, and listens to her clients and brings back the feedback that we need to make this business better. And she did a fantastic job turning things around during the pandemic, where we used to have over 70% of our business was face-to-face interpretation. Clients came back to us at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't know what they were going to do, but we listened, we planned with them. And within 2 to 3 months, we flipped that over to around 72, 73% of interpretation services that were taking place now remotely. We're talking about video, telephone, scheduled video, immediate video. So it was incredible. And this is all because of Judy and her team working closely and engaging with the clients, listening to them, delivering what they need, and getting our team prepared to deliver. So I'd like to say a big shout out to Miss Judy. Thank you. And under her, she's got a great team that we, because of everything that was going on, we made Salam become one of our key account managers, because we put in place a lot of new things during the pandemic. For instance, right now we're looking best in class. We're taking customers like HMMS that has, like St. Joseph's Hospital working under them, and we're looking at the best processes, and we're taking that and we're sharing that with all our other health clients, and it's working really well. And the same happening with people like Alicia. Alicia's focusing on some key segments out there, like legal, education as well, and these people are just on top of things. And the next person we have on board is Alana. She is one of our newer AMs, account managers, and she really focuses on the buying groups like OECM, the BC people out there. And she helped us tremendously in the beginning with our white label. So I want to thank her for the white label program when it came to training. She did a fantastic job. And all these account managers have behind them some good hard workers, and by behind them I mean some people by the name of account representatives that do the grunt work that has to be done, but without them we would not be successful. So I want to thank Hona, and I also want to thank Farjana. All of you guys were phenomenal. Thank you for really representing who MCIS really is. Great job. Looking forward to another great year.
Thank you so much, Lester. Next, our Director of Client Services, Veronica.
Good evening, everyone. There's really little I can add to the list of incredible accomplishments that have been made possible by all of us working together. Definitely none of us, or me for sure, could not have imagined that our fiscal year would end with such great results, judging by the bleak beginnings. And as many have already said, none of this would have been possible without our translators, our interpreters, the support of our board and committees, and our funders, customers, and community partners. So thank you all. And of course, none of this would have been possible without our wonderful staff at MCIS. When it comes to my teams, I feel tremendously grateful to have the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. You know, I like to think of the client services team as really where the magic really happens once all the work has been done by our colleagues in the background. This is where things truly happen. These are the teams that are on the front lines of language service delivery and translation interpretation services, advocacy for linguistic justice with our social impact department, as well as the unstoppable creative team that is behind the development of our new services and training programs in research and development. So these are big teams, but I'll try to do justice to every one of them, starting with translation. Many of you may see new faces. We basically have a brand new team of project managers led by Nicole. Nicole has been tremendous this whole year, and she's gone through some, you know, difficult times, making sure that in spite of constantly rising volumes and unfortunately losing some staff members, the experience for our customers has remained seamless, and we continue to deliver translation services at the same standard. So thank you, Nicole. And thank you to Carol, Sarah, Lindsay, and Helia, our project managers, Shweta, a backup project manager who's jumped in and helped out when we needed her most. Rita, the newest member to join our translator team, as well as Gerald, Louis, and Diane, our in-house French translators. So thank you all. It's been amazing to see the collaboration and sort of selfless way in which people have offered to help out when things were tough. Then social impact. It is a one-woman show at the moment. However, Eliana is the fearless leader of our advocacy initiatives and our fight for linguistic justice and language access for all. So thank you, Eliana. Then the newest member of our team, Nasreen, I'd like to welcome her. She's been with us since August, and she is leading an extremely important initiative at MCIS, and that is the implementation of a knowledge management system. It's been great to have her so far, and we're looking forward to the amazing things that we'll be accomplishing this year. Then the extraordinary team, if for all of you who've ever taken an MCIS e-learning course, Victoria and Paulden are the creative people who are behind our amazing e-learning programs. And it's just been truly impressive to see the speed at which we were able to respond to a whole new set of training needs with the switch to remote services. So thank you both so much. And it's been a pleasure to start working more closely again with Jack in his new role as Research and Development Manager. Jack and I have worked together in the past in the translation department when we both began our careers at MCIS. So it's been a pleasure to work more closely together again, and we're very grateful for Jack's leadership in redesigning the services so we can respond to the changing needs of our beneficiaries. And particularly the development of the remote simultaneous interpreting service and bringing the service to the community where this was something that was previously reserved to high-level conferences. This is now a service that we are able to make available to communities. And it's been extremely important in making information around vaccination accessible to limited and non-English speakers. And last but not least, if we can go to the next slide, my team does not fit on one slide, is the, really the rainbow warriors, the people who are truly on the front lines. If you ever call MCIS, chances are one of these beautiful people will pick up the phone and help you out. This is the Interpretation Services Department. And a big, big thank you goes to Stella, who has recently transitioned into the role of IS Manager, and she has not skipped a beat. She is an amazing leader that is right now focusing on ensuring that the month of November with our beloved parent-teacher interviews goes really well, even though it's, again, a very different kind of parent-teacher interviews. Stella is supported by two supervisors, Zodi and Anjum, who has stepped in as an acting supervisor. Her temporary appointment has ended today. And starting on Monday, we will have Kelly as our new supervisor in interpretation services. Congratulations, Kelly. Then the IS coordinators, Shanta, Vladimir, Ina, Anisa, Chioma, Hillary, Julia, Diana, Masa, Eva, Evelina. These are the people who make sure that all our interpretation assignments are fulfilled, that interpreter make it to where they need to be, that they have everything they need to fulfill assignments successfully. Oluvimpe is our customer care coordinator, so if there is an issue, she's the one who will be investigating and trying to find the fastest solution. Kelly, I've mentioned before, she's transitioning from an in-house interpreter and coordinator to the supervisor role. And then we have our backup coordinators who help out when things really go crazy. Tanya, Shirley, Nancy, and Nazanin are one of our after-hours coordinators. It's a strange time. It has been a strange year. I haven't seen most of you in person in over a year and a half. Some of you I have never met in person. And yet in many cases, I have often felt like we have become even closer than before. I have now seen your living rooms, your children, your pets, and I welcome many of you into my living room and my kitchen every week. But still, it's not the same, and I definitely miss you all, and I hope it won't be much longer before we share cakes and hugs and stories in person again. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Lata Sukumar, our Executive Director, to say a few words. Welcome, Lata. Your sound, Lata, your microphone.
As I said, I was saying that I don't have many words because my throat will not cooperate. But I just want to say that the one person that did get left out of this mix is Sarah, who is an amazing board administrator. She coordinates all the activities of the board, the committees, as well as assists me. And she's my hands and eyes and does everything to support my activities. But I'm so proud of each and every one of you. You all make MCIS look so good, and you have been amazing through my whole, year of pains. And I've just felt like you've carried the burden of my absences very well. So thanks all of you for doing such an amazing job and for showing up every day despite all the challenges in your lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lata. Thank you so much to the senior management team for your excellent introductions and for the amazing words. Let's move right along to our very special staff recognition awards. In recognition of the work that our staff does, we are also presenting awards to long-standing staff who have been with MCIS for a number of years. Your plaques will be ready for pickup on Tuesday, November 2nd. And guess what? You can pick them up at Diana's desk.
First up, I'd like to invite my colleague Alex to present the first recognition award.
The first recognition award goes to Esther, and what I can say, a committed employee and an extraordinary human being. That's what you are, Esther. And we're so glad to have someone like you in our workforce, filled with a positive vibe, confidence, honesty, and fearlessness. We couldn't have found anyone better than you for our team. On your anniversary, we appreciate all your hard work and dedication. Your tax workshops provide valuable insights to our employees. Best wishes for another successful year and congratulations on hitting the 5-year mark with the company.
Thank you so much, Alex. Lester, would you like to present the next award?
Yes, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Gregory Bourne on his 5-year anniversary at MCIS. Throughout the years, Gregory has worked a variety of different positions, including apricot support, training sales, II support, and now in a marketing capacity where he's helping us revamp the website. He's doing a great job, by the way, on that. So there's no task that is too difficult or monotonous for Greg to tackle. He'll step up when needed and is a true team player, always willing to help. Congratulations, Gregory, and we're wishing you all the best success and the very best health for years to come.
Thanks again, Lester. And finally, Judy will present the final employee recognition award for the night before we get to the prizes.
What can I say about Salam? She's a woman of many talents. She's celebrating her 5th year at MCIS, and she has been a fantastic addition to the team. She joined the team as the BD assistant, and she quickly grew into her new role, key account manager, managing all our customers who provide healthcare and education services. Salam is very dedicated to making sure that she exceeds her customers' expectations. Salam's unwavering commitment to excellent customer care and tireless efforts to ensuring successful relationship with her customers is nothing short of admirable. Salam leaves no stones unturned when it comes to customer service, and she's always thinking outside the box, finding solutions. It looks like she lives outside of the box. I have learned a lot from Salam in the past few years, and including resilience in the face of challenges. And I look forward to being a part of her successful accomplishments at MCIS in the coming years. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you so much, Judy. And let me just say congratulations to all the staff members who have tirelessly poured energy and heart into MCIS and advocated for limited and non-English speakers. Thank you.